You are tuned in to the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Bet365. Use code DNVR365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary with Bet365. Well, the Rockies are officially now 2-725 when trailing by 6 or more runs in the 8th inning or later. Yesterday, coming into the game, they were only 1-725, but after a dominant 7-run 8th inning, that's what it was, the Rockies take the series against the Atlanta Braves, division rival, and a heartbreaker for the Braves. They just fell apart. So we've got a ton to talk about. It is a Victory Podcast Monday here on the show. I am Christian Saez, joined by Noah Spirek. Noah's back because he couldn't get enough. You're only going to be here for another week before you go back to college. So first of all, thanks for joining the pod.
Of course.
What a game we saw yesterday.
That was incredible. And if you would have told me that was the second time ever that they've done that, I mean, well, you and I were in there. You know, we watched the Broncos for the first part of the game, and it was not, the vibes were not high.
No,
but what a comeback!
I needed a couple cups of coffee to get me through that game initially because we were kind of struggling for a while. The Broncos game kept us going in the beginning, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, Kyle Freeland came out of the game with looked like a blister flare up, and that was really my only focus at the time. Was okay, I want to talk to Bud Black after the game about Kyle Freeland, get some sound bites on him, and then just go enjoy the rest of the Sunday. But the Rockies had other plans, and we've got a lot to talk about on the show. But first, we've got to go recap some of the other games that happened, because there were other games that happened in the series. The Rockies did take 2 out of 3 from the Braves. They got their first win out of the series on Friday, 6-5. Tanner Gordon showing up, throwing a gem. And how nice is it to see Tanner Gordon in really his second solid outing that he's thrown for the Rockies over the last few weeks? I know Bud Black was fired up about that, but I mean, us in the press box, we had talked about it. And just how Tanner Gordon seems like he's kind of finding his rhythm with the Rockies. Yeah,
and ever since he came up, he's just been a guy that throws consistent strikes, and we know Buddy loves that. And so I believe in 3 of his first 4 outings, he's gone into the 6th inning, which is everything at this stage in the season with this team. I mean, he got called up because they needed length out of their starters, and he's done exactly that.
Yeah, well, and right now pitching continues to be an issue for the Rockies. They have struggled to find that consistency. We saw Dakota Hudson on Saturday struggled in his first start, or second start, I would say, at Coors Field in recent time, and ended up getting sent back down. I mean, he was put on the injured list after that game, but we were kind of feeling like it was just more of an opportunity for the Rockies to send him back down to the minors and kind of see how things panned out for him, but not the start that he wanted on Saturday. Vodnik had an issue on Saturday, with through the bullpen. He couldn't quite get it done. The Rockies ended up taking the loss on Saturday 11-8, but pitching still is that X factor negatively for the Rockies that just they haven't quite been able to piece together. And it's interesting because there are moments where they have really good pitching. Some of their bullpens we've seen over the last few weeks, there's been moments where they've had a really successful bullpen, but the inconsistency continues to plague them.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, as we talked about the last time I was on, the bullpen is kind of all pitching out of order. None of them are pitching in their natural innings. But Vodnik, he's really stepped up as a closer. And, I mean, we're going to start calling him Victory Vodnik because every time he comes in, it feels like the Rockies are slamming the door.
Yeah, and I made the joke last night about it too, or yesterday afternoon. Vodnik's sitting there in the 7th inning probably thinking, no chance I come into this game. And then all of a sudden, the Rockies tie it, take the lead, and Bud Black's telling him, "Hey man, you got to get going. Like you're coming in to close it on the 9th." And to go in from having this mindset of like I'm not going to be pitching to I need to get 3 outs to get this win for the Rockies, because they were only up by 1 too. So it's not like they were out of the woods by any means. And you do not want to be the guy that comes in after your team just put up 7 runs and then blow it in the ninth inning, and Vodnik shut the door and had a game.
Yeah, and I think at first he was kind of still getting loose when he was in the game because he gave up the leadoff single.
Yeah.
Threw a couple pitches to the backstop against Marcell Ozuna, a little over adrenaline filled. But yeah, I mean, he gave up the leadoff single, and then the next batter was Matt Olson. I think he had a 3-2 count before he hit into the double play. Great play by Tovar there.
Yeah.
And then a 3-pitch strikeout of d'Arnaud to end it. I love the emotion he shows every time he's out there.
Yeah, well, and I think the emotion is a byproduct of the stressful nature of those innings. And I remember watching the Giants, I think it was the year that Brian Wilson was the closer. So this is like Fear the Beard 2010, I think it was, when they beat the Rangers in the World Series. And I remember like the motto of the Giants postseason was embrace the stress, because that like it was every single outing that Brian Wilson would come in, although he was a very similar type of closer to Vodnik, threw really hard, could blow it by guys, but his accuracy wasn't always there, and he would leave fastballs over the middle of the plate. And you'd get like, it'd be a 1-run game, and you'd have guys on second and third with 2 outs, and everyone would be, biting their fingernails, like holding their breath, and he would somehow get out of it. Vodnik had that same idea where it's like, all right, first guy comes up, gets on base, and you're thinking, God, please don't blow this. Please don't let them lose this game after you come back and you get 7 runs, a historic comeback in the 8th inning. I wanted to share this stat. Speaking of the comeback, the Braves going into yesterday's game had won 131 consecutive games when leading by 5 or more runs in the 7th inning or later. 131 games in a row, the Braves had won when leading by 5 or more runs in the 7th inning. Talk about just an all-around disaster for the Braves. And when this happens to the Rockies, because Bud Black said it after the game, this stuff happens on both sides. You go through 1 or 2 of these games on either side of the field every year. But when this happens to the Rockies and they're 25 games back from first place and they have no chance of making it to the playoffs, it's a little bit different vibe than when you are an Atlanta Braves team who is very much in the middle of a postseason run, and every single game counts, especially when you play the Rockies. That hurts big time for the Braves.
Yeah, they've been struggling since the All-Star break, kind of playing themselves out of the postseason picture. I think on Thursday heading into the series was the first calendar day that they had not held a postseason position in over 2 years, which is just ridiculous because it speaks to how they start every season hot, and then they're a really good team. And I mean, like you said, 131 straight games, but then they came to Coors Field.
Yeah, Coors Field will do that. I will say the Braves offense is one of the most powerful offenses I've ever seen at Coors Field. I mean, they hit the ball so hard at Coors Field, and I credit the Rockies offense for keeping up with them, because they did, even in their loss. I mean, their loss on Saturday was 11-8. I mean, the Rockies scored 8 runs. If you have a slightly competent pitching staff, you win that game. But for the Rockies to stay in there offensively, it's very impressive. But I mean, you're looking at Marcell Ozuna, who is a Triple Crown threat, possible MVP candidate. Like, I mean, the dude's having an absolute season. Matt Olson, even d'Arnaud hit a home run yesterday. I mean, the long ball was flying for the Braves. So this is a team that offensively is a juggernaut. Their pitching, though, is what gets them into trouble. We're going to talk about that more as the show progresses. But I want to pivot in the pitching mode here, or not pitching, offense mode, because we saw some guys on the Rockies offensively who had a hell of a series. And you got to give a shout out to our boy Sam Hilliard, who is going to be our Live Extraordinary Player of the Game presented by UC Health. Hilliard didn't have the best game of his series in their comeback win yesterday, but overall, his series was incredible. He was 6 for 8 with 5 RBIs. All 5 of those RBIs, by the way, did come on their Saturday game. It pretty much accounted for over 3/4 of those 8 runs. He had himself a day. You see Bud Black, he had some really positive things to say about Hilliard after the game, and he's been seeing the ball really well. So, Noah, I think you were the one who asked the question to Hilliard after the game about, just what his mentality has been. And so take a listen to what Hilliard has said after the game on Saturday about his vision at the plate. We got that clip pulled up, Kale. Sorry. I jumped.
Oh my gosh, that was probably the coolest game I've ever been a part of. Yeah, timing was on tonight. Swing feels good. I felt really good. I think I've been in a good place ever since I've been up. And it's just a matter of putting it all together and like you said, being on time. So I was able to do that tonight, and hopefully I can build off that and keep a good thing going.
That was Sam Hilliard after their loss on Saturday. A different type of vibe in the clubhouse afterwards. Obviously, they took the loss 11-8, and that was kind of a frustrating loss too because just the pitching was just not there. But Sam Hilliard was the bright spot in that entire series for the Rockies, and there was a lot of offense in that second game, or in the game yesterday. But man, Hilliard's been just hitting the skin off the ball. Yeah,
and that's what he's done throughout his career in AAA. He's kind of been dubbed the Quad A player because he is the Albuquerque all-time home run record. That's not really a record you want to have when you want to be a big leaguer. Typically means that you've spent a little too long in AAA. And so, I know Rockies fans are so happy to be seeing the success that he's having because he's 30.
Yeah.
And he spent every year except for, I think, the last two, or maybe it was just the last year between the Braves and Orioles, with the Rockies organization. And so, I don't know. We talked about it with Vodnik and Tanner Gordon, a little bit of revenge against his former organization.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something there for Sam Hilliard, but I just hope he can keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. And he talked about, that mentality and being able to use that confidence and allow that to grow. So Sam Hilliard's having a good streak right now offensively. That's why we named him our UC Health Player of the Game. So head over to uchealth.org/tomorrow and take care of your mental health today so you can have better tomorrows. Well, speaking of UC Health has a new partnership with the one and only, the one and only Coach Prime. None other than the man himself, Coach Prime. Coach Prime wants to help you and other Coloradans live your healthiest lives and be your healthiest selves as the Chief Motivation Officer of UC Health's Ready, Set, Co Challenge. The goal for this Ready, Set, Co Challenge is to get Coloradans back to their rightful place as the healthiest group of people in the entire U.S., to get Colorado back to its rightful place as the healthiest state. Apparently, we fell to Washington State. Got to give credit to my family holding it down over there on the West Coast. But Colorado has some very healthy people, and so UC Health is making it their goal and mission to get Colorado back up to the #1 healthiest state in the U.S. And they're doing that using a combination of nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mindfulness. And Coach Prime explains how you dive into each of those different aspects to live your healthiest life through the Ready, Set, Co mindset. It's a statewide initiative to help all of us here in Colorado, and it's just about you making a lot of little different changes that can kind of add up to one big change overall. So start today, start making some of those little changes. Head over to uchealth.org/readysetco to learn more about that. If you want to join this Ready, Set, Co challenge, click on the link in the show notes or go over to uchealth.org/readysetco and see how you can get involved. Also, we always got to give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota because Toyota is our absolute favorite motor vehicle company in the entire world. Toyota has the most reliable vehicle lineup across the country. I mean, they are truly the best, and their track record speaks for themselves. I've talked so much about my experience with Toyota. I've got a 2007 Toyota Highlander. My entire family has Toyotas. I feel like everyone I know has a Toyota because there's so much versatility in the Toyota lineup. They've got trucks, SUVs, they've got sports cars. I mean, they've got anything. They've got hybrids. They've got anything that you want. And their new lineup of cars, including some of their newest vehicles that are coming out, the 2024 lineup, is really, really sleek. They've got some incredible new offers. They got 17 models with available all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, like the 4Runner, the Toyota Tacoma. They've even got, the SUVs like the RAV4, the Highlander. So many different options. I've talked to about, one of my personal favorites being the Toyota Camry. I love the sleek look of the Toyota Camry. And if I didn't live in Colorado and wanted a 4-wheel drive car, I'd be rocking the Toyota Camry all day. But no matter what your preferences are, Toyota has you covered. Head over to the Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. That's Auto Nation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood, and of course, DNVR and Toyota. Toyota, the official sponsor of the Rockies and DNVR. Well, I wanted to continue talking about this incredible comeback because that is truly, I mean, it was historic for the Rockies. And the Rockies have really been on a run recently, in at least at home playing at Coors Field. So I wanted to cue up that clip of Sam Hilliard talking a little bit about just how contagious it is when you see guys getting their offense going like that. So, Cale, do we have that clip ready? The second Hilliard clip? Let's run that, see what Hilliard had to say after the game yesterday.
Oh my gosh, that was probably the coolest game I've ever been a part of. Let's put up a 7 spot in the bottom of the 8th when we needed it. The exact amount of runs that we needed to take the lead. And then it's a good feeling when you got Vodnik coming in the game to get 3 outs. I think it was 3, 4, 5 in the order. It's pretty good hitters, but he's a stud, and that's exactly what situation you want him in. And it was awesome, and the boys were fired up. I got chills out there in the outfield in the final out. It was a sweet game.
Can I just say, Sam Hilliard seems like the coolest dude to hang out with. Like, he seems so chill.
Oh yeah, and he's got such great perspective. I think each day he comes to the ballpark with an appreciation that he's there, and I think everyone needs a reminder of that.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And he's also plays with some intensity, a lot of energy. And you talk about the fact that he's, 30 years old and obviously not, playing probably where he was when he was in his early 20s, but he still plays with so much intensity and energy. And he reminds me of another guy on the Rockies in Jake Cave. Very similar style. Jake Cave played a crucial role in that comeback. And you're pretty close with Jake. I know you spent some time with him before the game. We make fun of you saying that you and Jake are like best buds. Yeah. But Jake, I feel like there's a lot of similarities between him and Hilliard.
It's interesting because they both hit from the left side. They're 30 and 31. Cave's 31. And you think about what they bring to the team and what that could mean moving forward. I think Cave, although the power has really started to show, he's got 6 homers since the start of July, which has been amazing to see and really helpful for the Rockies offense that has taken off a bit, especially in the homer department. Cave is more of a contact guy. He's been the Rockies' replacement a lot of times late in games when they're looking to secure the win. But Sam Hilliard, he's more of the swing and miss, but when he connects, it goes a long way. And I know that hasn't happened much recently because the dude's been tearing the cover off the ball. I think his average is up close to 270 now, which I got to think would be the highest in his big league career over a prolonged period. I mean, he's been up for a while now this year.
Yeah, he's been up since, early June?
Yeah. But yeah, they're both pretty similar players. And so, Christian, we were asked yesterday by Thomas Harding with MLB.com, covers the Rockies, for next year, do you see either one of them being on the roster, and which one would you pick, or both? Yeah,
no, I love that question. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's a very valid question. Right now, Cave and Hilliard are kind of both in that fill-in role in the outfield. They, as you see Blackman and Chris Bryant getting kind of moved around, getting some days off, Jake Cave and Sam Hilliard get kind of fitted into those spots. But in all honesty, and I hate that, this is the reality, I think, for the Rockies, because I think both of these guys are super fun players and clubhouse guys. I think, unfortunately, there's probably not a spot for either of them next year. And if it is, I personally think Cave has a little more consistency long term. And he has the experience that I think Hilliard doesn't have, given the similar age range. But, I mean, you've got such a stacked outfield from the farm system, even in guys like, Chris Bryant, who you're paying a lot of money. You probably want to have him getting some innings out there, even if it's just to take advantage of how much money you're paying him. You've got Jordan Beck, Nolan Jones, guys in the farm system that are going to be coming back up into the majors, hopefully, definitely by next year.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's going to be a spot for them. I mean, you're looking at an outfield with Doyle in center field, theoretically Nolan Jones back out there. Chris Bryant, Charlie Blackman, are going to have to figure out who's going to be in the outfield between the two of them because Tolley has pretty much got first base locked down for now. And so one of the other guys is going to be in the DH spot. I don't really know what you're going to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it because, like you said, Doyle's a lock in center. He's not going anywhere. You hope to have Nolan Jones back to the player he was last year, the impact player. Maybe he's comeback player of the year next year. That'd be a fun campaign to run. And then Jordan Beck, they were playing him a lot early in the year. I think they were trying to get the rookie kinks out, trying to improve the performance. And Bud said that, he wants to see some performance before Jordan Beck's back. Well, I think he's hitting close to 400 in AAA since rehabbing. You also have Yanquiel Fernandez, who's in AAA Albuquerque right now. I expect him to see the big leagues by September, and that'll be awesome because I compare him to Yordan Alvarez. I know not a lot of people like doing that. The dude has infinite power.
Yeah.
And,
which is so fun to see at Coors Field.
Yeah,
too.
oh yeah, exactly. And it remains to be seen if Chuck will be on the team next year. But think about the outfield there, and like you mentioned with Chris Bryant, that's already 5 for 3 spots. Yeah. And Fernandez hits from the left side. Nolan Jones hits from the left side. I guess you could bring up Cave's defensive ability.
Yeah.
And, he can be a late innings defensive replacement. Sam Hilliard has done that a little bit in his time up. This year, the Rockies are 17-17 when he appears in a game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's going to be tough because what direction are we heading in? We're heading towards 2026, 2027 when our postseason window is open.
Yeah, and you're looking at young guys. I mean, obviously you need some veterans to stay in the lineup to help bring those young guys forward, but I think you've already committed to that with guys like Rymack, hell, even Elias Diaz and Stallings, who are still on the team, Drew
Romo.
Drew Romo, knocking on the door, hoping to get in soon. So I think, there's a place for there could be a place for them. It just depends on where some of those question mark pieces move going into September and then in the offseason. We did talk to Jake Cave after the game, though, because Cave has been a very fun player to watch over these recent weeks. And so we've got a clip of Jake Cave just talking about the excitement of that run for the Rockies and their comeback in the 8th inning.
If you're in the dugout for situations like that, you feel the buzz. Everybody, guy gets a big hit, down 4. Next guy comes up, even if he just takes a good swing, everybody's up on the top of the fence, yelling and that kind of thing. So when those things start, we realize that, the pitcher's back's in the wall in those situations. It's tougher for them up there. So as a hitter, go up there, kind of like you said, slow heartbeat, put together a good at bat because they're the ones with the backs in the wall. And sometimes that exposes itself a little bit when things start piling up. They start leaving pitches over the plate. They start getting rushed a little bit, whatever it is, and then so that momentum's a real thing.
That's the tough thing about baseball is, any sport really, but, baseball especially because of the minors and how quickly guys go up and down, you can't hold on to them forever. And obviously the Rockies aren't doing well. So the reality is guys like Sam Hilliard, Jake Cave, even Charlie Blackmon, people like that are going to start getting moved around. And we're already seeing, guys like Michael Toglia, who's on a 5-game hitting streak, by the way.
There we go.
Playing really well and kind of locking down some of these positions that were historically held by Rockies players like Charlie Blackmon or even Chris Bryant. And so the change is good, but as is almost all change in life, it can be challenging and painful sometimes. And, so I don't know what the future holds for guys like Jake Cave and Sam Hilliard, but for where they are right now, I'm sure they're just thrilled to be playing as well as they are right now for the Rockies.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Well, and I want to go back to the Giants closer that you were talking about earlier. Was it Jacob Wilson?
Brian Wilson.
Brian Wilson. And I want to just throw some perspective out there for Rockies fans. You mentioned how he was a high leverage reliever who would escape every big spot. That's what the Rockies have found that in Victor Vodnik, and the dude's 24. They found that, and look, he's had a couple blow-up innings, as a young reliever will do. They've found that in a year that they're not contending. And so the goal is that going into next year and the years that they do contend, they have a Brian Wilson guy at the back of their back end of their bullpen that they can count on. I think the Rockies should use every ounce of this year to set their young guys up for the future success. I get all the, smooth everything out now while you can. And so for Yanquiel Fernandez in September, he's going to have some swing and miss in his game. Let him come up, get a taste, and make the adjustments necessary to become an everyday player. Jordan Beck, He's got to be in the big leagues right now. He's healthy. He's I know Bud said that the strength is coming back in the hand. He's hitting a home run almost every other night in Albuquerque. And so I love talking about Jake Cave and Sam Hilliard. They're both dogs. I love them as, players, but are they a part of the postseason picture in the future? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I agree. And guys like Victor Vodnik are pieces that are being added, and you're kind of locking in Vodnik, Tolia, Doyle.
Yes.
Pieces that you have set and kind of set, and barring either injury or you just crash and burn, like you can't hit the ball to save your life type of thing, they are the guy. They are the one. You've checked that box. Exactly. You've checked that box for the coming years. And every year for me, the Rockies have to gain more than they lose. That is part of rebuilding. That is where you're at as a team right now. So if you can gain something each year that you didn't have in the year before that, and you're not losing guys, because look at Nolan Jones. You lost Nolan Jones this year. He didn't have the year that he had his rookie season, and he got hurt. That's a net loss because we don't know what we're going to get out of Nolan Jones next year. Hopefully he's a comeback player of the year, like you said, but we don't know. He could have just kind of crashed and burned and fizzled out. We have no idea. So if you're already now, you're kind of looking at maybe a net loss on Jones, you've got to find other guys that are going to come in and be your net positive. Tolia being one of those guys, Victor Vodnik being another one, Doyle being, kind of that third guy that you're adding to that list, checking that box. So I 100% agree with you, Noah. The Rockies have to kind of be solidifying names in places, and especially from a pitching standpoint. So yeah, I mean, it's fun to talk about, Jake Cave and Sam Hilliard when they're doing well. But the reality is they're only going to be here for, a short period of time before things move on. And we'll see kind of what tomorrow brings. But we got to give a shout out because Noah, I want to tell you about this new product that we've started using here at DNVR. And that is Z-Biotics. And Z-Biotics is a really interesting new product that I've started getting into because as I've started getting older, it's harder to drink and then bounce back the next day, And I know you're not there yet. You're like, what, like
20 years old.
20 years old. There you go. So you don't know this yet. But for guys like me who, I'm 27, I feel like I'm 55. You start going out with friends. You go out and you have a good night with friends. But it's really hard to get back on the horse the next day. You feel just a little bit slower, a little more groggy. It's just not the same as you felt when you're 21, 22, 23 years old. And so with Z-Biotics, it's a really cool product because it helps that recovery time really just bounce back a lot quicker. And, with Z-Biotics pre-alcohol, which is their new product that you drink before you go out drinking with friends, you can enjoy your night out on the town, drinking with friends, and also enjoy the next day. You don't feel all gross the next day. And so what is Z-Biotics pre-alcohol? Well, it's the world's first genetically engineered prebiotic invented by PhD scientists to tackle the rough mornings after drinking. And this is how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. Bunch of bad stuff going on in your stomach. And it's really that byproduct that's to blame for the gross mornings the next day. So pre-alcohol, Z-Biotic pre-alcohol, produces an enzyme to break the byproduct down, and it really helps you to feel kind of rejuvenated in that next day. So remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink before you go out drinking any alcohol. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best self the next day. Make the most out of the rest of your summer. Stock up on pre-alcohol now. Head over to zbiotics.com/DNVR Rockies to get 15% off your first order. They are backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll give you your money back, no questions asked. Remember, that's zbiotics.com/DNVR Rockies to get 15% off your first order. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode, and of course, for sponsoring our good times. Well, speaking of good times, at Bet365, they know a lot about good times. And at Bet365, they don't do ordinary. Bet365 is your premium place to go for anything sports betting in the Denver, Colorado area or beyond in Colorado. They have you covered. And at Bet365, they believe every single sport should be epic. So, of course, we got to talk about them with the Rockies, because I would make the argument that sports betting in baseball is one of the best types of sports betting, because there's so many fun little money lines that you could bet on. You could bet on stats beyond your wildest dreams. And at Bet365, they've got you covered for all of that. Use code DNVR365 when you sign up. Deposit $10, and you can choose between either a bet and get offer, where you place a bet of $5 or more and get $150 in bonus bets, or your first bet safety net offer by placing a bet up to $1,000. And if your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. But also, one of our favorite offers that you get at Bet365 is MLB Early Payout Offer. With the baseball early payout offer, you're a winner if your team goes 5 runs ahead or more with an instant payout. Parlay and same game parlay selections will be marked as winners. And with the way the Rockies are swinging the bats right now, I mean, they're putting up 5 to 11 runs per game, at least in their Braves series. So you're in pretty good shape offensively with the Rockies with that bet. So yeah, head over to Bet365 because they don't do ordinary, and be sure to use code DNVR365 when you sign up, and check out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's talk about some unfortunate news coming out of the weekend. Kyle Freeland's first game back on the bump after leaving the game in the first inning in his last series against the Mets due to a blister. Well, the blisters popped back up. Not what we wanted to see out of Kyle Freeland. Take a listen. We've got this clip of him after the game talking about where the flare-up happened and how this blister kind of progressed.
Start of the fourth. I could feel my thumb hitting it from the start of the game, and then there's one that I felt like it just clipped it really clean. I looked down, I was gushing out of my finger.
First time we see this, we saw it pop up in 2019, and then in that Mets series, it kind of came back. And I said it on my last show, Noah, that I was actually more concerned about this blister than a lot of people were, because I've been there. I've gotten blisters on my finger before as a pitcher. I was one of the pitchers that unfortunately was plagued by blisters in my time playing. And the issue with blisters is they feel like they're not that big of a deal because it's just a blister. You get blisters all the time. But when it affects your ability to throw a pitch efficiently, it takes a long time for them to go away. So it's not like that traditional injury of like, oh, you tear your ACL. Like, there's a very specific protocol on like how you come back from that, and you have to take time off, and or you twist your ankle or whatever. With a blister, you feel like it's something that you're only going to need 4 days to heal on. And I said on the last show, I'm worried because when you come back out, if you don't give it enough time to heal, all it takes is one pitch, and that pops right back open and you're right back to square one. And it felt like that's what happened for Freeland.
Well, yeah, and from my understanding of what he said, to your point about it takes longer than expected to heal, from what I got, he had in the Mets series the blister on his index or middle finger. It was one of those two.
Yeah.
And he overcompensated, and all of a sudden on throwing his curveball, and I know you can give us a lesson, his thumb, because he was avoiding putting pressure on his index or middle finger, ended up nicking his pinky ended up nicking his thumb, either one of the ways around.
Yeah, so we were talking about this before the show, and I've got a baseball here because we were trying to kind of figure out where the pinky comes into this. And so I'll start by explaining with the curveball. When you throw a curveball, and I don't know how Kyle Freeland grips his curveball, but a traditional curveball, you're putting your middle finger on the seam, this inner seam of the baseball, and you're using that to get your rotation. And so a lot of times you kind of think of like, snapping, making like a snapping motion when you release the ball. You're twisting, you're rotating your fingers, and that allows the ball to come out in a downward spiral. In doing that, your finger can sometimes slip off and rub up against your thumb. So I could understand that middle finger and index finger getting a little bit of a blister. I always got blisters on my index finger because I would put the seam on the inside of my index finger, and that's how I would get the release point. For Kyle Freeland, it looks like when he's throwing his curveball, he's holding it with his middle finger, and that's where that blister is coming in. What we're trying to figure out is how he was talking about getting that blister on the pinky. And I don't know if he was saying that the blister popped up on the pinky itself, if he was getting contact on his pinky, because the only way that I ever had any contact on my pinky was throwing a circle change, where you kind of release the ball this way and your pinky is the last finger to leave the baseball, and it subsequently can sometimes hit your thumb. I don't really know where he's getting the contact on the finger on his pinky. The issue is, though, when that blister pops up, no matter which finger it's on, if you're using that finger to get some sort of release on the baseball, that's where you start to run into trouble, because you no longer have the efficiency on that release point. And Bud Black talked about that being a actual coach's decision, that where the coaches were the ones that decided to pull Freeland out of the game yesterday because they felt like he wasn't able to get the most out of his pitches. As a competitor, obviously Freeland wants to go out there and compete no matter what. But, it's different when you see the coaching staff say, you know what, his curveball isn't what we normally see it at. We need to take him out of the game and let him rest and kind of recover. I haven't seen that very much, and so it seems a little more serious to me than I think Freeland was leading on to.
Yeah, and after the last Mets start, he said that they got a zinc injection to try to heal it. But the problem is, to your point, now instead of one blister, there's at least a blister and a cut, or two blisters.
Yeah.
It's one of the two. And so
it has to heal fully, at least in my experience. You have to pretty much heal it in its entirety, or you have to make an adjustment. So here's the two options. You extend your injury time to say, maybe I'm going to take 2 weeks off, which I know is terrible when you think of it just being a blister. But you're going to keep having this problem over and over and over if you keep going back and starting and it keeps blowing up every single game. So you either take like 2 weeks off, you let your finger completely heal, you stop throwing, and you let it completely heal over to where it then becomes a scab, and hopefully kind of scabs over hard enough that it's not going to burst back open, or you adjust the pitches you're throwing. And I don't remember who asked that. Was it you that asked that in the press conference yesterday? Someone asked, can you rely on your fastball and other pitches and changeup enough to get the job done? And he said no in that press conference, where he said, his curveball is his pitch that he uses to kind of set everything else up. So if he doesn't have his curveball, some pitchers can rely on just like a 2 or 3 pitch arsenal and get rid of a certain pitch and be okay. Freeland, unfortunately, isn't that guy. So I think you're in a place where if this, he's got a 5-day stretch before his next start, because they have that travel day in between next weekend. Mm-hmm. But if you're in a place where this happens again, I think if you're Bud Black and the pitching staff, you've got to put him on the 15-day injured list.
Yeah, and as frustrating as that is, I mean, talking about first why he can't rely on the fastball, like he doesn't throw 97 like some starters. He throws 91 with his fastball, and that doesn't play if you don't have great off-speed stuff like he does with the curveball and slider. But if I'm Bud Black and I have to put Kyle Freeland on just the 10-day injured list, I think you have a lefty in AAA, Carson Palmquist, who just got there from Hartford. But again, he's a guy that can come up and fill the role if needed. And I know Blaylock, I don't know if has the starter been announced for today's game?
No, or maybe, but I haven't seen.
We've assumed it would be Quantrill, because supposedly that would be the next guy up. He got his start pushed back just a couple days since the last one with a little bit of soreness in his arm. But, there are options on the table, and that is good if you're Bud Black, because that it's frustrating because Kyle Freeland has played so well since coming back from his injury, and he's the most competitive guy on that roster. I feel comfortable saying that. The dude is emotional.
It is Cal Quantrill, tentatively.
Okay, yeah.
Cal Quantrill is listed to be the starter on ESPN and MLB.com. The Rockies can obviously change that, but Quantrill is expected to get the start. But I agree with you. And also, Kyle Freeland, you talk about him being kind of a unique type of pitcher. Like, if you can't rely on your fastball to blow by guys, which I would argue no one can at this point in the major leagues. I mean, even Ben Joyce had a 22 ERA in the month of June, and he's one of the hardest. He is the hardest throwing pitcher in Major League Baseball right now. So, I think it's fair for Kyle Freeland to, albeit frustratingly, take a moment to say we're going to let this heal fully, so that it doesn't keep popping up. Because you still got a lot of season left, too. I mean, this is, I know it starts feeling like we're getting close to September. I mean, it's been cold as hell here in Denver for August, but we still got a month and a half of baseball left for the Rockies. So Kyle Freeland's got to take the time he needs to get healthy, and then, maybe transition kind of into a rehab mode. Not in full rehab where you're having to go back down to AAA or anything like that, but where you're able to kind of get your feet back under you before you can start again.
Yeah, and there's not that much season left. About 40 games, I think. Yeah, because yesterday was game 119. So if he misses 10, 15 games just trying to heal up, he misses. I mean, in reality, it's only 2, 3, maybe 4 starts if the right day. So I know he doesn't want to do that, but I just don't want him to develop a serious issue on his hand because it's a lost season, like we've talked about before.
Yeah, well, we already lost Herman Marquez, for the remainder of the season.
Senzatella might come back in late August, Bud said, but probably early September. Yeah. So that's something to look forward to. But you just want to have that core to be ready to go for next season. I mean, Freeland, Marquez, Senza, those guys pitched in the 2018 NLDS. Or Freeland pitch in the wild card. But those are the guys that got you to the postseason. You need those guys back and healthy.
Yeah, I agree completely. But I want to pivot real quick and talk about some of our great friends over at Chinook Seedery, because they have the best sunflower seeds out there on the market. If you're in the market for some good sunflower seeds, you want something that doesn't leave a bad taste in your mouth, doesn't leave that old sandpaper type tongue, that salt burn that you get with traditional seeds, well, you got to check out Chinook Seedery, because they have some really interesting and unique textures to their seeds, and not in a weird bad way, but just in the sense that they don't leave a bad aftertaste. It is a really good flavor and consistency. We were talking about bubble gums in the locker room, because they have all the double bubble out there, and we were saying that like double bubble has a great initial flavor, but it's the worst because it loses flavor in like 2 chews. You're like 30 seconds in, you have no flavor left.
Yeah, on Bet365, their taste line would be 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, at least. And we're taking the under on all of that. Yeah. And so, you have gum that loses flavor over time really quickly, and then you have seeds that do the same thing. But with Chinook Seedery, that's never the case. Chinook Seedery has some one-of-a-kind flavors that last a long time, and they have really good consistency in your mouth. They've got 8 unique flavors: original, lemon pepper, jalapeno ranch, Parmesan and pepper, cinnamon toast, dill pickle, hatched chili, and smokehouse barbecue. So go over to ChinookSeedery.com to pick up a sample pack. Try all 8 of those flavors. They are the largest seeds on the market. Again, that's head over to ChinookSeedery.com and use code ROCKIES at checkout for 20% off your order. They are the best seeds ever. Well, we also got to give some love to our friends over at Premier Member Credit Union, because if you're like me, you like to take care of your finances, and there is no one better at taking care of your finances than Premier Members Credit Union. I'm a big planner. I like to organize things. You can ask Marissa, my wife. I run the finances in our house, and I am very OCD about that. I have my spreadsheets. I've got my alerts on my phone, my calendar. It's got everything organized. And when I'm organizing my finances, one of the best things that you can do in organizing your finances is by having a credit union that is consistent and stable, reliable. They communicate with you to help make sure you're on top of your money as well. And you've got professionals that can help you with that as well. So head over to Premier Members Credit Union, because they've got you covered. They're a financial institution based right here in Colorado. With PMCU, you get local branches, friendly tellers, and the tools you need to save smarter, like a reverse tier money market. Whatever your goals, they can help. PMCU is all about creating a better banking experience for their community. So why not see what they can do for you? Check out becomepremier.com to learn more. Well, I want to talk about the Braves for a moment, because we're still on the Braves topic, since they did just get shellacked by the Rockies yesterday. Did we just single-handedly end the postseason run for the Atlanta Braves? Did we just knock them out of the playoffs by ourselves yesterday? Because I don't know what the Braves are going to do. I mean, that sums it up right there. Because what the hell is going on with the Braves and in a very tough National League wildcard race?
In 2019, when the Rockies played the Padres in that infamous 4-game series where I think there was over 100 runs scored or close to it, everyone knew that the season was over after that series. The Rockies had just gone to back-to-back postseasons. In 2018, they had forced a game 163. In that Padres series, the Rockies blew 2 leads in the 9th inning. The first game was 6 runs.
Yeah.
And then game 4 of that series was 4 or 5 runs. It was a brutal series. And the Braves now, over their last 10 games, are 3-7. They're 7.5 games back of the Phillies for the division. Now they're on the outside looking into the wild card, and that National League is about as close as it gets towards the top. They're going to have to bounce back, and I know they're going to leave the series saying, okay, well, Jorge Soler homered in 3 straight games. Our offense is back. It's clicking on all cylinders. The bullpen, where do you turn now if you're Snitker and the manager of that team? I think the Braves will eventually be in the wild card again. I just think they're too good not to be in the postseason. Yeah. And shoot, if they play at home, that tomahawk chop, we heard it all game.
I was going to talk to you about that. We saw one of the most wild and annoying fans I've ever seen at a Rockies game. We were sitting in the press box, and the entire game I can hear the tomahawk chant going on. But it's not like a section of people. No, it was one guy. And he was sitting right behind the Rockies. Standing. You're right. He was standing right behind the Rockies dugout for the entire game, doing the all 9 innings, standing the entire game as well. We were placing bets on how soon he was going to get rocked, because I can't imagine sitting in front of, behind, to the side, or even 6 rows behind that guy. What a character.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said he was standing all 9 innings. He might have sat down in the bottom of the 8th.
I know. The Rockies might have shut him up there for a while. Yeah, that was... I applaud the dedication on that guy's front. But also, like, bro, read the room, man. Like,
it was bad.
Take an inning off.
I mean, it was... during the national anthem, he might have been doing it, because it really felt like he never stopped. And then at the end of the game, when he was walking up, he had made such an impact on me that I looked down to see, how he was feeling, because the Rockies had just won. And he might be needing some Z-biotics today.
Yeah, he might. I mean, rumor has it, during the Zach Williams concert, an hour after the game ended, he was still standing doing the tomahawk chant. Dude was committed. But I wanted to bring this up. And I did send our producer, Kale, a picture of this. According to Brooksgate, they were showing a graphic of all of the teams' ERAs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings as a combined ERA. Unfortunately, the Rockies are dead last with a 6.38 ERA in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings of the ballgame. The Rockies have a 7.36 ERA in the 9th inning. What are we doing, guys? But the Braves have a second best 3.17 ERA in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. I would imagine that 7-run spot that the Rockies put on the Braves last night did not help in the 8th inning for that ERA.
Yeah, this is the value after. This is this morning.
Yeah.
And so, assuming it was calculated after the game last night, for the 8th inning ERA to still be 3.62, that's incredible.
Yeah, I do think it speaks to the quality that their bullpen has consistently had in this season. And I made the very clickbaity start to this segment by saying, did the Rockies knock the Braves out of the playoffs yesterday? The real answer is no. The Braves are a very good team. They will probably be in the playoffs, or at least in a wild card game. But they need to get going, because they, like you said, are in the toughest division in all of baseball, and they have a very competitive wild card race with teams that are playing lights out baseball right now. The Padres, I believe, I had this written down. The Padres have been on a tear, and what was it? The Padres, I think, have won 7 straight.
Yeah,
is that correct?
They're 8-2 in their last 10. They lost yesterday, but the 2 hottest teams since the All-Star break are the Diamondbacks and the Padres.
Yes.
And guess who the Rockies play this week? The Diamondbacks and the Padres.
Yes, and the Phillies. The Phillies have been struggling. Who did the Phillies play? Were they playing the Padres or the Diamondbacks? I think they were playing the Diamondbacks, right?
Yeah, they just got swept. Yeah, by
And
the
they
Diamond-
lost all 4 games in the 8th inning. They were tied or winning all 4 games in the 8th inning or later and lost all 4 games. So the Phillies are falling apart. The Braves not doing great, but the Diamondbacks and the Padres are picking up the pace. And of course, like you said, the Rockies are playing both the Diamondbacks and the Padres in their next 2 series. Spoiler. But we talked about that, I think, on the last show that we did. You know, the Rockies have the opportunity to play spoiler in pretty much every series that they play from here until the end of the season, give or take like a Marlins series.
That might decide the number 1 overall pick. You never know with the draft.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's very true. So it's something to keep an eye on. The Rockies have an opportunity. We did get a tweet from our buddies at CHGO Cubs after the Rockies beat the Braves yesterday because they love that. They love that we beat the Braves. But yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces right now.
Well, and look at the National League West standings. The Diamondbacks and Padres are both only 3.5 games back of the Dodgers. And when's the last time that the division was this close, this late in the year? I know 2018 was a legendary 3-team race down the stretch with the Diamondbacks, Rockies, and Dodgers. But the Padres, for all the hype over the years, it feels like they're finally putting it together, led by Jurix and Profar. Who would have thought that?
I know.
But
I know.
It's turning into, for a lot of teams, a really interesting and competitive August and September. And September baseball is just the best leading up to the postseason. So if you're the Rockies, you have to find ways to pull other teams down with you. And while they're competing for the postseason, you have to, and I keep hammering this point home, you have to find out what you have in the young guys and just give them the opportunity.
You know, in the words of the Joker, the Heath Ledger Joker, some people just like to watch the world burn. And if we're the Colorado Rockies, that's where we are right now. We just want to watch the world burn a little bit, specifically the National League. And if we can bring the Braves and the Dodgers,
Pull them into the fire.
pull them into the fire. I mean, not to say they won't make the postseason, but make them think a little bit. You know, I mean, the Braves. I don't know if you heard this is on Twitter. Did you watch the little montage of the Braves broadcast? That
Yes.
was incredible. If I could show that to you on air, you have to go and watch it at home. Go to Twitter and find it's all over Twitter, just the highlight reel of the Braves 8th inning broadcast, because it went from like, you could hear them at the beginning kind of casually being like, yeah, you know, we're talking about random stuff and it's a bit playing at elevation. And then like Jake Cave hits a home run. They're down by 4, but hey, the Braves still got it. And then next thing you know, they're like, oh my God, it's tied. And oh my God, we're losing.
Yeah.
And it was just silence.
And I just love, because it's clipped up for time. It's not just the whole 18-minute inning or whatever it was.
We would take that too.
You can hear like intermittently them talking about the altitude and the large outfield. Like I think at one point I heard a lot of hits like that as there's another single to center field. Like,
yes.
It's just funny because
That was
they were
good.
coping a little bit.
They were. We were seeing them in the cafeteria, the media cafeteria before the game, and they had smiles on their faces. They were feeling a little happy about that series, and the Rockies again pulled them into the fire. Speaking of home runs at Coors Field, I wanted to ask your opinion, because we get to watch batting practice every day for the Rockies, and one of the beauties of playing at Coors Field is that you get to see guys hit home runs that go a lot farther than maybe they would normally hit home runs. The Rockies have one of the most fun batting practice lineups, hitter-wise, I think I've ever seen. I mean, they've got guys hitting the ball. I saw Rymack hit a ball into the third deck, like by a long shot. And Rymack is like your size. Like he's, skinny, 6'3", like he's not a huge dude.
Yeah.
And he was hitting the ball third deck at Coors Field on that right side of the field. I mean, the Rockies are fun to watch batting practice.
Yeah, I think that I've seen Jake Cave hit one off the facade of the third deck where Matt Olson went with that grand slam the other day. It like you said, it's just a ton of fun, and we've both agreed that Sam Hilliard is absolutely the king of BP.
Sam Hilliard is the king of BP. He hits he's the guy that every single swing is trying to hit it 500 feet.
Yeah.
Every single one in batting practice.
Well, and sometimes in the game.
In the
too.
game as well, yes. And he like when he squares it up, like it looks effortless. I want to ask. I mean, you've been watching baseball your whole life. I'm imagining you probably, when you were younger, like went to games early and would watch batting practice for teams, growing up. Who was your favorite player to watch in batting practice warming up before a game? From a home run standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever got to watch him hit BP, but Carlos Gonzalez, when he hit liners.
Yeah, it's Cargo easily.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're on this.
Cargo, and like even just vibes wise, like he had he had his own playlist, like Cargo BP was legendary.
I mean, even in games when he'd hit those, he'd smoke a liner and it'd still be rising as it crossed the center fielder's head.
Yeah, it was like a golf ball.
Yes.
Like it had that drive pickup.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm glad you agreed with that because that just seemed like the answer.
No, it's the obvious pick. Yeah, it's like Cargo's probably the best BP guy of all time from the Rockies.
So I never got the privilege of seeing Cargo, because I grew up in Seattle. But growing up in Seattle, Nelson Cruz BP was incredible. He hit one out of the stadium, and I don't think anyone's ever done that. That's including Ken Griffey Jr. No one has ever, to my knowledge, hit a ball over the, because we, it was Safeco Field back then, but it's T-Mobile now. They have the retractable roof, and there's a train kind of track that goes up above that left field wall in the outfield over the stands, and that's where you can actually hit it out of the stadium. And no one's ever done it except for Nelson Cruz, to my understanding. And he was in every single swing was at least upper deck, if not out of the stadium type of guy. And didn't have the vibes that Cargo seemed to have, but he was fun.
So Cargo, everybody knows the famous CJ Cron home run, which happened in a game a couple years ago that landed in the trunk of the Toyota truck. That was up there. Cargo used to target practice with the truck up there. He used to intentionally try and hit it
as a lefty.
Just ridiculous. I mean, because he was just out there having fun. But just it was just stuff like that. He was just a ridiculous, good vibes, clubhouse guy. So
I heard a story of Mike Trout, because apparently Mike Trout is very competitive. Shocker. And I think it was Tim Kirkjian who told this story of how Mike Trout they'll kind of partner up with some of the rookies and do kind of mini competitions before the game. And so I guess there was some rookie who got partnered with Mike Trout, and the rookie was saying, Mike, there was this place in the Angels outfield or in out on left center, a target, a sponsored target that he was trying to hit. And that was their goal. And I guess the rookie hit the target in his first swing and beat Mike Trout in their little competition. And he told Tim Kirkjian that Mike Trout didn't talk to him for 2 weeks because he was so pissed off and would show up every single day trying to just hit. That was his only goal in BP, was to hit that target until he beat that guy at batting practice. And I'm sure that guy probably isn't even still, I don't remember his name. It's still probably not even in the bigs anymore, but he gets to say that he beat Mike Trout in a BP, a little warm-up game.
That's incredible. I mean, but that's what the guys are out there to do, man. Their job is so hard. They're only successful 30% of the time, the best hitters.
Good, yeah.
And so you got to have fun in the warm-ups. I'm glad you mentioned CJ Cron because I was going to say, as a casual answer, I kind of think CJ Cron would have been another great guy.
Yeah, I mean, not the same vibes of the swag of Cargo and that, but just absolutely mashed.
It's those long loopy swings. I mean, Hilliard's loops through the zone. Cargo
totally.
Was notorious for that looping swing. And Cron, he had a big leg kick and then just got the bat through the zone.
Yeah, I think of Ken Griffey Jr., even Raul Ibanez, keeping with my Mariners background, had that loopy swing that every once in a while he'd hit one 500 feet. And it was just, God, they're rainbow shots. They were beautiful. But
I know in MLB The Show, during the home run derby mode that they have in there in Seattle, I love using lefties to try to hit the roof that's out there.
Yeah.
And the same thing in Miami, which is hard to hit long homers there, but in left field when the roof retracts.
I'm still waiting for someone to leave Coors Field. I don't think it'll ever be done, but there's,
Yeah, give Matt Olson enough games.
Give Matt Olson a shot. He might do it.
I don't know. If Barry never did it, probably not going to happen.
Oh, yeah, Barry. I know. That's true. That is true. Well, this has been fun, guys. We always love having a podcast after a victory, a big victory for the Rockies. I know in the standings, they're not going anywhere this year, so I understand. We make the most of what we can, but what fun baseball we had over the weekend. The Rockies head on the road now. They're playing a game in Arizona tonight against the Red Hot Diamondbacks. They have the series there. Then they go take on the Padres. And we've got some games coming up here soon at Coors Field. And I want to give a shout out to our big DNVR Rockies takeover on Saturday, August 17th. There is still a couple more spots left on the party bus and with the tickets. So we have our links and all of that up in on Twitter. So head over to DNVR_Rockies on Twitter to sign up because we only have a couple spots left. Head over there, get your spot before tickets run out. It is going to be an absolute blast. Bobblehead, Todd Helton bobblehead. It's going to be a party. We're going to have a really good time. And we enjoy watching some Rockies baseball. So that's going to do it from us. Myself, Christian Saez. Noah, where can the people find you on the socials?
Just at Noah Spirek is my personal, and I'm a contributor for Blake Street Banter.
The guy himself. Noah's going to be hanging out with us on Wednesday as well before he heads back to college. Run it back, exactly. We love to see it. Shout out to our super producer, Kale, as well. He is always the GOAT for us. We appreciate you taking the time. And as always, thanks for tuning in, guys. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast brought to you by Bet365. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
We all silly like the mayor.